Hey everybody, it's Dr. Will Peer, and I'm a graduate of Grand Canyon University's doctoral program. And my dissertation took advantage of a really cool platform called Amazon Mechanical Turk. Many other researchers at Grand Canyon and other universities consider using Amazon's Mechanical Turk, or it's also known as MTurk platform, to collect their data. And I found that the knowledge that I've built is of value to other people. I've helped other doctoral learners and candidates that were considering the platform make better decisions and more informed decisions about whether they should even use the platform at all, and if they do, how to set things up. And in these conversations, there have been many now, a lot of the same kinds of questions seem to come up, or misunderstandings about the platform. So I thought, well, why not just put a video together to help other people out and make it easier for someone to choose whether they want to use the platform or not. And in doing that, you might find that the Amazon Mechanical Turk platform isn't the right place for you, and that could help you and save you time and money. Or you may find the other case that, you know what, this platform is great and perfect for my needs. To help bring you up to speed, though, on the whole Amazon Mechanical Turk platform, and for you to evaluate it on your own, there are a lot of concepts and terms and vocabulary that's unique to the MTurk platform and different than, say, something like a SurveyMonkey or a Qualtrics. So in this video, I'm going to talk about all those kinds of things. Now, to set expectations, this is not a step-by-step how-to video on how to load your survey into MTurk. I'm going to show some of the pages inside the system to bring up some points. But if you're looking for a how do I load my survey in MTurk, this isn't that type of video. I'm going to present vocabulary things, key considerations, things to watch out for, because there's been some GCU students who maybe made some they made some missteps and it cost them a lot of money. I want to talk about some of those things. I'm also going to provide some academic references that you could cite in your dissertation. Now, assuming it's within the 5-year window for you and when you do your dissertation, some of these references provide great data points to help justify why you would use an MTurk and help justify and show that the recruitment may or may not be possible based on the population of interest you have. If you find value in this or any of the other Dr. Will Peer Help videos, and you appreciate the work that goes into actually putting them together and putting them up there for others to get to, please push, tap, touch, poke, whatever you got to do, that like button. Because what that does is it tells the search engines, hey, here's a video that maybe helps somebody. And then when other doctoral learners are looking for help, they're stuck, let's say on MTurk, it will help elevate this video so that they're more likely to see it and maybe they get the help they need and help them on their journey. I mean, this journey is tough enough as it is. So if you could just help somebody find it sooner by clicking the like or whatever, that'd be awesome. Another thing you could do, of course, is share the video, right? So if somebody's talking about wanting to use a crowdsourcing platform like MTurk, you could do it. You can share it if they're doing SurveyMonkey, although they probably wouldn't need the video then. But if they're looking for alternatives, this may be a good video for them. And then finally, ideally, I would be just hanging out with you. We'd be talking about your dissertation, and we'd be having a nice casual lunch, probably a Mexican place, because that's my favorite kind of food. So you could always buy me a taco, right? I love Mexican food. I love taco. So you can go to my website to do that. You can go to www.drwillpeer.com/taco. What is MTurk, or Amazon's Mechanical Turk? MTurk is a crowdsourcing platform. And in crowdsourcing platforms, a giant piece of work is broken up into smaller tasks, and these tasks are handed out to lots of different people to work on. Crowdfunding platforms like GoFundMe is a great example of one, where the big work body is raising a certain amount of money and then asking lots of people to contribute to it. The MTurk platform is a work crowdsourcing platform. Many companies, both large and small, use the platform to get chunks of work done. In the MTurk world, the company that's asking for the work to be done and put it out there on the platform is called a requester. And that would be you in this case, as you put your body of work out there to be worked on, your task. The worker doing the work is called a Turker. Turker. So as you go up and read the different things that are in the platform and you're trying to figure out what goes where, when it's referring to Turker, it's the person who's actually doing the task. The task in the MTurk platform is called the HIT, H-I-T, and it's just capital letters, H-I-T, and that stands for Human Intelligence Task, and that's the task for a human to do. An example task that's commonly done on a platform like MTurk is audio transcription. If a requester needed an hour of audio turned into text, some kind of thing they recorded, maybe they're doing an interview, it could be a researcher, right, that's collected some interviews, audio interviews, the requester could chop up that whole hour-long audio file into 60 1-minute hits or tasks and take those 60 hits that they've got from their whole hour, put it onto the platform, and then Turkers that are online at the time could see, hey, look, there's an audio transcription hit, and it's only a minute long. I'd like to do that. And they jump in and they do that task. As social science researchers, we can take advantage of how the MTurk word crowdsourcing platform works, because we could view our study as a giant piece of work. And then any one participant's contribution to that work is really our survey. So that's the game here that we're playing. A platform like SurveyMonkey is specifically geared towards surveys, and the language and everything is all set up to feed that task. But you've got to always remember when working in MTurk that it's actually more broad than that, more broad in the sense of the kinds of things it can do. And we happen to be taking advantage of the way it's arrayed so we could get our survey-based task done. I point this out because the language that's used between a SurveyMonkey or even a Qualtrics and then MTurk can be different. And as I've helped others come from one of those other worlds into the MTurk world, it was confusing. So, the fact that you're watching this video is going to help you get that jump start, so you will maybe be less than confused on the vocabulary. There's other things in the platform that's confusing. We'll talk about those. And you don't want vocabulary to be one of those stumbling blocks. In my dissertation, for example, I could view the entire data set I needed as a big body of work. It just so happened that to build this body of work, I needed 134 different people to do my study. That was the minimum sample size that I needed. So treating my study as a big body of work, I asked MTurk to help me put out their 134 hits, where the individual task, that is the things that Turkers would work on, happened to be an informed consent, followed by a demographics, data collection survey, followed by, in my case, I had an experiment that they did, chatting with a chatbot, and then I had them do a 25 Likert item survey. And then once they finished those things, they got the thank you page and voila, all done. So my task, my individual task, was informed consent, demographic survey, experiment, survey instrument collection, done. You may or may not have an experiment in yours. Most of the studies I've been looking at to help people bring over onto the platform have been informed consent, demographics, survey instrument, done. So those kinds of things are absolutely doable on the MTurk platform. You just treat each person at that whole collection as a single hit when you put it out onto the platform. This view, though, of a giant work task makes working within the MTurk world slightly different, like I said. So you just keep in mind that the way everything's going to be presented is if your whole thing is the big body of work, and the individual surveys that you're collecting we're going to call tasks or hits. So this kind of changes the view. You need to view yourself more as a manager handing out tasks to be done. And therefore, the language in that's a little bit different. So you would, for example, want your task to show up. You're the manager handing out the work. You're going to want your task to only show up for those within the platform who are qualified to actually do your work. It's kind of like a pre-screening criteria. So you will pick out the demographics that are available to you through the MTurk platform to help pre-screen who can even see the work task. This is analogous to on the SurveyMonkey system where you might say, here are the people I'd like to see. Well, you're kind of pre-screening who could see your work task. When Turkers sign up onto the MTurk platform, they can provide demographic information, and they're encouraged to do this because it lets them show up for some maybe hits that somebody else may not be qualified to do because they don't match the demographics. You will find that the potential pre-screening criteria list is pretty good. For a work platform, you can pick out from location, age range group, employment industry, marital status, language fluency. But there is an important note to bring up about this. The first one is that you're only allowed to pick 5 pre-screening criteria. The second thing to note is a lot of the pre-screening criteria cost a premium. So you don't just get that. Like if you pick, for example, military experience as one of your pre-screening criteria. So that is, you only want Turkers who have demographically identified when they joined the platform as having military experience. If you only want them to see your particular body of work, your hits, your tasks, then you're going to pay a premium of 30 cents for each person who does your survey. So these are the kinds of things that you're going to have to think through and be careful about. So you get 5 that you can pick from, and then there's also a premium. And that premium is going to be on top of whatever it is you're going to pay for the Turkers to do your task. So remember, I pointed out and said, hey, you've got to view this as you're a manager. You're like a manager of your own company. You will have to put up a price for doing your hits that's going to be paid to the Turker. And then you also have to pay the platform, that is Amazon Mechanical Turk, for the privilege of being able to put your work onto their platform. I mean, they have to pay for their servers, they have to collect their money somewhere. And we'll talk about those payment models and even pricing later in the video. One pre-screening criteria that's important to consider is called the hit percentage score. The hit percentage score is a score that's assigned to Turkers based on their performance for other requesters. So as a requester, you get to say, yeah, they did a good job, or no, they didn't. Well, that information gets bundled up into a hit percentage score. It's an aggregate over a Turker's body of work themselves. You get to set a threshold and say, I only want people above a certain percentage to see my work task. And this is very helpful to get rid of those people who maybe aren't paying attention. That's the lower percentage people. If they're not focusing or paying attention to your task, they could mess up your whole study, especially if you have lots of people doing that. So you want to set that threshold. You want to use one of your 5 discriminators, pre-screeners, to help pick and do a certain percentage score. Now the question is, what percentage score? You have some people who take the stance that you should do 99 percentile. That is, I'm sorry, not 99 percentile, 99% or better. So that is people, Turkers, who are getting a 99% approval rating of their work. If you do that, you will be narrowing the body or the number of people available to work on your work task. I set it at 95%, and this worked out really well for me. So I believe I got people who are paying attention to the tasks. Maybe there's 1 or 2 that snuck in there otherwise, but there were enough people at the 95% threshold to fulfill my study just fine. If you're not getting enough people in your study and your percentage is too high, you could always go back and just lower that percent threshold to say, I'm looking for people that have this approval rating. Another important pre-screening decision you'll have to make is if you want to take advantage of something called the MTurk Master Worker Qualification. Turkers that achieve that qualification have differentiated themselves not only on their high approval ratings, but even on how much money they've earned on the platform. There are several other factors that get tied into it, but a master Turker, in theory, is going to be far more attentive, far more engaged, and really give you what you're paying for, their focus, time, and attention. But as you might guess, this is a money-making platform. Jeff Bezos got to still launch his rockets, right? He's got to go catch up with Elon Musk. it costs more money. You're going to pay an extra fee to get access to those master Turkers, those master worker Turkers. I did not use the master worker pre-screening criteria. That was a choice I made, right? It's a design choice. In any study, you have to make choices and trade-offs. One of the references I used, academic references I used to help me make that choice, was a study by Stephen Rouse, 2020. So you could see that reference later in the video, cutting to the chase, right? Just jumping right to a too long didn't read, too long didn't watch thing. They found in their study there really wasn't a difference between master workers and those who didn't have that qualification. But again, it's always dependent on the task. But for the kind of task I was doing, it fell in line with the kind of stuff that Rouse 2020 was pointing out. Who is a Turker, right? Who becomes a Turker? Because that's your giant pool that you have to draw from to do your study and see if there's enough of your particular population of interest within that pool. Amazon does not go out and recruit people to work on their MTurk platform. People learn about it through social media, maybe popular press, maybe friends say, hey, here's a side hustle you could do. The pool of workers is global, so that's important to keep in mind. But most are coming out of the US or the UK, and some recent research is showing that India is actually growing quite a bit in terms of population that's available to you. So this does have an impact on your study because you need to consider your target population, and you need to ask yourself, well, do enough people for my target population, for my target, do they come from the people who would have signed up for MTurk and found it on their own? So I was helping somebody, help them figure out whether the MTurk platform was appropriate for their study. And they had shared with me that the people they were interested in came from a very specific school district in a large state. So the question that has to be asked is, do you think that on the MTurk platform, teachers from that particular school district in that large state happen to have signed up on MTurk? MTurk doesn't go out and try to pull people in to fill people's surveys. They're just out there offering a platform to connect workers with people who have work tasks. SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics, especially like a Qualtrics, part of the value proposition they provide is they can help you go get those kinds of people, and that's awesome. But you got to pay for that, right? Because that's work to even go find these kinds of people. So when you look at choosing to do MTurk or not, you just got to think about, would those people happen to have joined MTurk? And then, is there enough of those people, right? So maybe a couple people did, but it's unlikely you're going to get a sample size large enough for a particular school district. But I don't know, right? You simply don't know until you get out there and try. It just was unlikely. In my study, for example, I set my population quite large and wide. It was a pretty large and wide. And what I mean by that is I needed U.S. people, that is people living in the U.S. They didn't have to be U.S. citizens, but they have to be living in the U.S. who didn't have a college degree and had happened to do some form of online learning. That's it. That's a pretty broad statement. The odds that somebody who fits that profile happens to sign up for MTurk is quite large. And then I'll share, in fact, when I did my study, my target, as I shared, was 134 in terms of the number, and I filled my whole study in less than 24 hours. So there were enough of the people I was looking for on the platform that particular day that I put it out there that it was done in 24 hours. Everybody I needed was filled in. It was great. So think very carefully about the population, because it may be that what you need isn't on the platform, or maybe looked at it differently. If you want to use an MTurk platform, just be sure that the population you've argued for or outlined in your dissertation is one that you will find large swaths on the MTurk platform. So just an important consideration. Back to the kinds of people who are signing up. Amazon does not make the demographics of their MTurkers worker pool publicly available. At least I've never found it. And in fact, a lot of researchers try to study what that is, and they publish academic studies on that, what they found. One that I found that I brought up even in my dissertation was by DeFella 2018 in a paper called Demographics and Dynamics of Mechanical Turk Workers. So again, if you look at the references at the end of the video, you'll see it. These researchers found that at any one time, so any one moment in the day, there are 2,000 people ready and looking for a piece of work to do. Now, how many of those 2,000 happen to fit all your pre-screening criteria and your informed consent criteria? I don't know. But at any one moment of time, there are 2,000 people ready to do work. Of the total number of people on the MTurk platform looking to do work, whether they happen to be on or not at any given moment, the researchers estimated that about 75,000 MTurk workers in that pool are from or living in the United States. So if you are doing a US-based population, there are about 75,000 people who may fit that broad category for you. Now let's talk about the MTurk worker community. It's pretty neat what these people have done. They've built their own communities out there. They even have their own online websites that they do. One that I found pretty neat was at https://forum.turkerview.com. I actually went ahead and joined up. I wanted to see what the kind of things, what things they were talking about, and also see if I could figure out what kind of hits or tasks they found interesting to do and what made them choose one task over another. Because, again, I'm going to put my stuff out there. I want them to pick mine. It's really neat community because they do share a lot of information. They share things like which requesters are easy to work with, which ones are hard, which hits pay the best for the amount of time, which ones are most interesting, which ones are broken out there. I mean, it's great. So, part of your decisioning process could be for you also to go out there and explore these forums and read about what they're saying, because you may glean something, or you may see how one person did a survey or study similar to yours out there that they're talking about, and you avoid whatever mistakes they bring up. A final note about the demographics of MTurk workers. It's really important as researchers we respect things like anonymity of our participants. Our studies mostly are to maintain that for them, that anonymity. In the MTurk platform, the way that's done is that when you sign up to be a Turker, you're assigned a unique ID. And that unique ID is your Turker ID. And that ID is what associates you to a piece of work that you're doing. So you as a requester, when you see that somebody's survey has been done, you won't know who they are, but you will know their Turker ID. With that Turker ID, you don't know the person, but if that Turker happened to share their worker ID somewhere out there, yes, it's possible that you could go out and try to figure things out, but it's just not pragmatically possible that you're going to find somebody. So you can treat the MTurk platform as an anonymous platform. And I point that out because it's an important part of the dissertation process and getting your study approved by like an IRB, because you have to show and demonstrate that anonymity can be maintained. And the IRB, at least at GCU, has honored that. My dissertation is an example, but there were several others before mine that also used MTurk and pointed out that it does follow the requirements for maintaining anonymity. You'll have to say it in your dissertation because you have to demonstrate to your committee you knew to investigate that, but rest assured, at least at this time, the IRB will honor MTurk being a anonymous platform. And they especially like that when you make your payments, and again, we're just talking about some different things here, and we'll talk about payment later also, but when you make your payment to the Turker, even though it's your money, it's being brokered through Amazon's platform and then over to the person. So you're not even directly involved in the money movement, but you're the one who's making the payment. So it's really cool and really neat. Let's talk about being a requester. That is the person or company that has the big body of work that's going to be carved up into individual hits for the Turkers to work on. To do that, you have to have an account that has been created and authorized to work within the MTurk platform. Now, interestingly, the way Amazon has things set up, you are technically not creating an account in MTurk. You'll have to create an account in a different part of the Amazon world. You're probably familiar with the Amazon shipping services world. You probably buy stuff, well, at least I do, and have them shipped to the house, or you use Amazon Prime. That's an example of an Amazon account. Um, Another Amazon account system, this is one that I use quite a bit, is in their computing world platform. It's called Amazon Web Services, or AWS. When you go to try to set up your MTurk account, it's going to ask you, well, which of the other Amazon accounts are you actually trying to link in to create your MTurk account? I didn't try to set anything up with my personal, like my Amazon shipping accounts or Prime Services account. I did take the option of using my Amazon Web Services account. So when you go in to create your MTurk account, you're actually going to see it. One of the options is, do you want to create a AWS account or link it with the AWS account? And that's actually what it's speaking to. A doctoral candidate had asked me if it was safe to load your credit card information into these systems. You know, this is Amazon, and I have found Amazon to be quite good about security and things like that. I have my credit card for my personal account, started with Prime and that kind of stuff. But then in my AWS account, I also have a credit card that's associated with it. When a Turker completes a task and I'm in the MTurk platform and I approve that task, the MTurk platform turns around and sends a charge over to my AWS account. That's where the credit card processing is actually occurring. And it isn't instant. There was a delay of several days before I actually was charged. And in no time did I find my credit card was being exploited in that. Let's talk about data quality, because that's an important part of our dissertation work. We need to have good data so we can do the kinds of research that we want to get out there into the world. And, as they say, garbage in, garbage out. A lot of the data quality stuff with crowdsourcing platforms depends on the people taking the survey, to be honest, and having them pay attention as they do it, not just simply randomly clicking things, or not just picking a single thing and clicking that answer all the way down on, in my case, I had a 25 Likert item survey. And, I've certainly done surveys in the past, long before I became a doctoral candidate. And I got tired of answering questions and just, answered the same thing all the way down. I won't do that anymore, but I did back then. If this occurs, hopefully, if it happens to your study on the crowdsourcing platform, hopefully your outlier computations and calculations that you defined in your methodology chapter at GCU is at chapter 3. Hopefully that stuff helps catch that. And of course, you do have to execute your outlier checking in your data analysis and results chapter at GCU. That's chapter 4. Hopefully you can catch them there. If you look at my dissertation, you could see, if you go to page 127, that I caught somebody doing this through my data analysis. You'll see that participant number 79 showed up as an outlier. Now I say I caught them. Maybe they honestly felt first answer all the way down for all 25 of my questions. So I shouldn't say I caught them. I do think it's unlikely that was the case. But let's just say, so they were an outlier. And my outlier computations caught them, caught that case. So they had to be excluded. But if you look at this like from a data quality perspective, out of the 135 plus people that I captured, because I actually went a little bit higher. I was like, I should capture some extra data here. But out of, I think I ended up like 145 people, only one showed up as this case. So from a, do the people actually pay attention and do a good job for you? I would say yes. At least in my case, I felt like the vast majority, over 99% of the people, did my task. They went through it, and so I'm really happy with that exchange. Another area you could look at to kind of determine if people are taking your survey seriously is how long is it taking them to do the task? And MTurk does provide you a way where you could see the average time it's taking people to do your task. And if you set up your study, and we'll talk about this later, your broad base of work in batches, which I recommend, again, we'll talk about that later, you could look at how long it's taking groups of people to do your task. And if you find that it's taking people, 10% of what you think it should take, well, then maybe you have a problem and maybe you need to revisit your pre-screening criteria, or maybe even just punt on the MTurk platform because for some reason it's just not lining up. Maybe your guesstimate on how long it would take to do your task was off. It could be a myriad of things, but you can use the average time it takes to complete a task as maybe a barometer about whether you think people are actually paying attention. In my informed consent that I had published as part of my study, and I had available to all my people who would join my study, I estimated it would take about 15 minutes for them to do the task. And interestingly and nicely, I was finding that batches were taking between 11 and 17 minutes. So I felt pretty comfortable that I was matching what I had guesstimated it would take. There is another bad actor situation that is important to be aware of that happens in crowdsourcing platforms. All the crowdsourcing platforms, survey ones or just work ones, all try to fight this, but it does happen, and it's goes by a lot of different names, but I'm going to refer to them, and you can find them in the literature, as worker farms. These are where people will go out and do your task one time honestly and record the answers that they've collected. They then turn around and go onto a bunch of fake accounts they also created, and they run a script of or playback of what they recorded when they did your survey the first time. So really it's one person and they're doing your survey many times. This is really bad for us, right? Because now instead of getting 134 different people, if a script is being recorded of my survey and redone by the same person 50 times, well, I'm now not getting a true sample. So this is something you have to watch out for. There are ways to try to help prevent that. And again, the platforms themselves are devising all sorts of ways to help protect it. And there are papers out there that describe this problem in ways you can protect against it. One relates to blocking Internet Protocol or IP addresses that are known to provide and have worker farms come through their servers. So that was one of the techniques I employed as part of my protection against this. So there's a lot of stuff out there about that, and so you just need to be aware. But this problem applies not just to MTurk. It's not unique there. It's a problem for all the different crowdsourcing platforms where work is being done. A research paper by Kennedy et al. 2020 called The Shape of, let me get this right, let me look at the name of it, The Shape of and Solutions to the MTurk Quality Crisis. That paper could help you understand the different kinds of bad actors that are involved and then some of the ways people are working to mitigate that particular problem. Let's talk about the process of getting your survey online. So again, this isn't a click-by-click how-to, but there are some things I want to talk about. So if you go for it, that could really save you a lot of hassle if you better understand what's going on. For any survey that's done across the internet, ultimately it needs to be a web page. Some students make a web page with like Google Docs and make it available. That's great. That costs nothing to put a web page on Google Docs. Other people build them out. SurveyMonkey provides that provision for them. That works great. So they go out to SurveyMonkey. They're using SurveyMonkey for recruitment and the survey itself. That becomes where the web page is. That's great. MTurk can host the actual survey as well. And if you are doing your recruitment on MTurk, I would encourage you to do your survey hosting on MTurk. Just like if you're doing SurveyMonkey for recruitment, you're better off hosting the survey on SurveyMonkey. Now, what happens, and the reason I'm bringing all this stuff up is sometimes a candidate, and I've worked with a few where this has happened, a candidate's trying to do their survey on SurveyMonkey because that's the natural place a lot of us go to right off the bat. So great videos on how to do it. So you go out there, you set up your survey, and you're collecting data, but you're not getting enough participants. Or you find that it's just too expensive and you're looking for alternatives. Totally understandable. And so then they begin looking at MTurk. And then they use MTurk as recruitment, and they try to point the people that are being recruited, the Turkers, over to the survey that's being hosted on SurveyMonkey. And you absolutely can do that. But there's a problem that comes up, and I want to talk about it so that you can at least be aware. When you create your hit listing on MTurk, where you're doing the recruitment, MTurk offers you, the requester, a couple templates as a starting point. And when you pick the template that you are telling, so when you go through that template selection, one of the templates is listed as the survey is not listed on MTurk. That is, it's hosted elsewhere. And when you look at the template, you're going to see that there's a special code field. When a Turker completes a survey on another platform, it is expected that the other platform is going to generate a unique code. That unique code would then be entered by the Turker on the MTurk platform, and that's that special code that's being presented as an open field when you pick the template for, hey, I'm hosting my survey somewhere else. So this can be confusing. So I'll try explaining it in another way. When you use MTurk as a recruitment platform, but not necessarily host your survey, the template you pick will have a field in it that's called special code. That special code is something that the other platform is going to have to generate at the conclusion of your survey. Now let's talk about why you have to have this special code, because it's designed actually to protect you, the requester. When a Turker clicks to do your hit and they get sent onto a whole different system, you have no way of knowing, or the MTurk platform has no way of knowing whether they actually did it or not. It's two separate systems, two different companies. You got MTurk over here and you've got SurveyMonkey over there. They don't talk. So you need the SurveyMonkey system or wherever to generate a special code. If a Turker can't provide that special code, then you know they actually didn't complete the task. And they then cannot claim they did your task and charge you. So that's why it's there to protect you. One option you could consider, although you shouldn't do it this way, but one option that some people try is that on a system like, let's say it's SurveyMonkey or otherwise, I keep using SurveyMonkey because that's the most popular, at the conclusion of their SurveyMonkey task, they generate a code, but that's not really generated. They use just a static, non-changing set of variables or letters, like maybe ABC 789. But every participant ends up getting that same code. That's dangerous for you as the requester if you go that approach. So on the thank you page, hey, thank you for doing my survey. ABC 789 is your special code. If the Turkers and their Turker community choose to share that special code, then Turkers that haven't actually done the actual work of your task could go in and click your task, immediately go to that special code field and plug in your special code. But they never actually did the survey. So then you're getting all these notifications, hey, Turkers are finishing your work, and yet you go to the other platform and you don't have as many. And it's all because they started sharing the special code. So it's really important to protect you that the other system, if you're not hosting on MTurk, can generate the special code. In January 2023, a candidate asked me if it's possible to have SurveyMonkey generate, does it have it out of the box, a way to generate that code? And when I went out and looked, I didn't see that it necessarily had that capability. But there are ways to do it. They're very technical in nature. And so if you're that inclined and capable, there's some literature out there and some websites, blogs where people have talked about how to do that. But doing that's beyond the scope of this video. I'm already going too deep where I didn't plan to, but it's an important point to consider this whole special code business. So of course, the better option, if you can, is to avoid this special code business by hosting your survey on MTurk, and you can absolutely do that. You can recruit and host all on the same program and are all in the same platform, and that's the approach I would suggest if you're going to use MTurk. So how do you do that, right? So, you've got your survey, you've used their template that say, hey, my hit is going to be hosted here in MTurk. Well, MTurk does provide an interface for you to build out what your survey is going to look like that it's going to host for you. But this goes back to the whole thing about MTurk is really a work-based platform, not necessarily targeted specifically at surveys. The tools provided are quite rudimentary. It's not some pretty drag and drop kind of thing, and oftentimes you find yourself having to dig into the code, HTML code specifically, to achieve the effects you want. MTurk will let you build a survey, but it's not necessarily built to hide and show an informed consent. And let's say somebody finishes your demographics. How do you hide and show that? That kind of stuff requires JavaScript coding. So if you're not comfortable doing JavaScript coding or HTML work, MTurk may not be the best platform, and you may have to just go pay the premium over on something like SurveyMonkey. Now, if you're not intimidated either by trying to figure that stuff out or you're handy in code, then by all means, you could jump into MTurk and write the appropriate JavaScript code to hide and show the different elements. So it first shows the informed consent, they click accept, hides that part, shows the demographics, they fill out the demographics, they click the next button, it hides that, brings up your survey, they do that, hides that, and shows them a thank you page. You can absolutely do that in MTurk. To help out somebody else, I wrote them a quick little shell that shows the basic functions of hide and show. So if you'd like that little shell, it's not a full functioning thing, it just shows the mechanics of how to do it, but specifically within the MTurk platform. I'm glad to share it. Buy me a taco, right? If you buy me a taco, you're going to get a thank you note from me because it's really nice of you. In that thank you note, you're going to have my email address. Just reply back and say, hey, I'd like that shell that you wrote, or that basic template that does the hide and show so I can see how it works, and I'll be glad to send it to you. You've decided you're going to go with MTurk. You feel comfortable you can build the survey within the MTurk platform, or you're going to host the survey somewhere else. That's fine. It's going to generate the special code. Now the question is, how do you price your task or your hit? That is, how much are you going to pay each person, each Turker, to do your work? There are three different ways you could look at this. One is you could lowball everybody. Hey, I'm giving a dime or a penny for you to do my work. You could go high, right? You could say, I'm going to offer a lot of money. Here's $50 for my 5-minute survey. Or you could do something kind of in the middle, but it's more actually ethical, as you'll see in a moment, where you set the price maybe more to market rate base, or even potentially trying to accommodate the living wage for wherever your workers happen to be coming from. So first, let's talk about the lowball route and considerations if you're going to go that way. The risk is if you go really low in your price, that Turkers just don't pick your task. So remember, when you put your task out there, when the Turkers see it, they see it and how much you're offering against all the other hits that they have available to them. So why should they pick yours if you're offering nothing or very little for their time? I mean, they're not going to do it necessarily out of the kindness of their heart. They're trying to make some money. The other thing is, if you go really low, you might get a Turker who does it, but then they're like, well, they're not paying me much, so I'm just not really going to pay a lot of attention. So then you run into that problem. All right, so let's say you don't go the low route, and you're thinking, I'll get the Turkers to do my task. I'm going to pay them a lot. Plus, these guys deserve it. They're doing work on my survey, my study. I hear you. Here's the problem. we bump into ethical issues. And we, as social science researchers, need to protect our space to make sure we're always following the ethical rules that have long been established by things like the Belmont Report. The ethical research standards are very clear about this, that somebody must be able to exercise free will to do your tasks, and you cannot exert any kind of undue influence that would violate that. And by you offering a lot of money for the task, are you really offering them a free will choice? Now, it's an ethical issue, right? So you could argue it many different ways, where you fall on that. But in social science research and in psychology, where my PhD is, there are literature pieces out there that talk about, is it ethical to pay research participants in psychology research for their time? And in general, what's accepted is that you can't offer them some crazy bounty to do it, because you will have actually taken away their free will, because they're going to be like, I have to do this. Well, we don't want that. We want people to exercise that free will choice. So the question then is, how do you do that, especially on something like a crowdsourcing platform? If you follow the literature, what you're going to find is that there's this concept of marketplace rates. You want to set your task that you're doing so that it is equal to or on parity with the other tasks that are out there and available on the MTurk platform that are aligned with the demographics you're seeking, the complexity of the task you're asking them to do, and then the qualifications of the person you're seeking. So look for other tasks that are similar in terms of what you're asking for, maybe doing some simple surveys. Look for how much time the tasks are going to take, and then is there something unique about your qualification? So in my case, I was seeking people without a college degree. Well, it could be argued that that qualification would get less pay than somebody who has a college degree. So I had to find like tasks in terms of time, qualifications, and complexity, and base the rate that I was willing to pay Turkers on that. That then allowed the Turkers to exercise free will. They could choose my task or somebody else's task without feeling like they were being influenced one way or the other. Another way you could try to price your task that I've seen in the literature is to reverse engineer, if you will, what the hourly rate would be. So that is, if your task takes 15 minutes, you could go find what the maybe minimum wage is for work in the area where you're pulling in your participants, and then divide that hourly rate by 4, assuming you have a 15-minute task, and that gives you how much you should be paying them for your task. So that's an ethical approach as well. So these are just some things that you'll have to think about and address in your dissertation. Whatever you pay, don't forget that Amazon's going to tack a fee on top of that. Speaking of fees, I want to bring back up the topic of batch sizes. In my study, I needed 134 Turkers to complete my big body of work, so I created 134 hits. But I didn't put out those 134 hits as one giant batch. When you put your work out on the MTurk platform, it's in the form of a batch, so it can build up the whole. I, most of the time, did batch sizes of 9. Now, the reason I did 9 is that the moment you go above 9, at least at the time I did my piece of work body on the platform, after you go 9, that is 10 and up, Amazon puts on top of that an extra charge. When I did my study, if you do 9 participants, 9 Turkers, 9 hits as a batch or less, so grouping of 9 hits or less, you save 40% on some of the fees that Amazon was going to charge. So for me, it just made sense economically. Yes, it's a little extra labor on my part to chunk everything up in groups of 9, but it's easy enough because the tool, the MTurk platform tool, allowed me to copy my batches. So once I made one batch of 9 people, I just copied it and did it and then did another. And then I copied it and did another. And I kept going that way. Now, another win besides the economic win on that is that when you first do your very first batch, I would recommend you do it small, like 5 people, 5 participants, 5 Turkers, because you want to make sure everything is set up right. There have been cases of GCU doctoral candidates who maybe configured something wrong. I don't exactly sure what had happened, but the data they collected, they did a giant batch, over 100 people. And the data they collected wasn't what they had expected or anticipated. Something was broken in that. But the Turkers did do the work, and the candidate still had to pay for it. So that's a lot of wasted money, not to mention the time that got lost in doing all of that. So please, even if you choose to pay the premium, the extra 40% fee on top of fee thing for going for 10 or more, when you do your very first group or you first start this, please do a very small batch, like 5 people, and make sure the data that's coming in is what you expect it to look like. Because if it doesn't, you can fix it before you launch your next batch. So you're not wasting as much money. When you're playing this batch game, right, and you're doing these batches, another thing you have to think about is, well, how do I keep people from doing my task in one batch and then coming back and doing it again? Because maybe they liked your study or they found it easy enough to make some money. MTurk does provide ways for you to avoid having somebody re-enter into one of your downstream batches. Going into all the details right now would be just make this video even longer, but just keep in mind that in MTurk, you can also create qualifiers. They're like the pre-screening things we talked about earlier. So you could say, as one of your pre-screening criteria, hey, anybody who's done my task before that I've given the qualifier of has done my study before, can't see my new hit that I've put out there, or my new batch. That's a lot of stuff. The MTurk platform is a whole world, and it provides fantastic opportunities for us as social science researchers. So let's try to summarize some of the key points, right, to distill some of these things. MTurk is a crowdsourcing work platform that can be used by doctoral candidates to recruit and even have it host this online survey instrument they need filled out. Those who host or recruit or set up any work to be done is called a requester, and that would be you. The people who do the work are called Turkers, and the task the Turkers are doing are referred to as hits. So you're going to expose on the MTurk platform a batch of hits that would fulfill all of the data collection you need done for your dissertation study. Keep in mind, as a summary point, that your population of interest may or may not be on the MTurk platform, so be sure to investigate all of that before you invest too much time here. Also, there are bad actors out there. We have the people who are not paying attention to the surveys that they're filling out. That happens. And then you have that concept of the worker farms. Those are batteries of not even real people that are filling out your survey. One person does it. They then send that script and have it played back to refill in, but it's not different people. It's that same one person just doing it a lot of times and collecting your money. I would recommend that you host the survey instrument on MTurk if you're going to use MTurk for recruitment. It just makes the whole special code thing we brought up earlier a non-issue. Price your task ethically, and I would encourage you to do that using the market-based rates. And finally, I would just give this as just general advice, because MTurk uses things like HTML and JavaScript to allow you to modify your task as it appears to Turkers, and that's going to be required of you. If you're not comfortable or don't want to invest the time into understanding how HTML code works or JavaScript code works, it may not be the right platform for you, or you should just go out and get some extra help from somebody to get it loaded right. Because you have to be able to do that stuff to make it work on MTurk. Because remember, MTurk wasn't designed just for surveys. It's that broader system for lots of work tasks. So they provide the tools and ways to do it. You just have to be able to get under the covers to make it happen. After hearing all this stuff, you may have decided, no way, I'm not going to be in on doing this. And that's totally understandable. MTurk has a lot of requirements on people, but keep in mind, doctoral candidates at GCU have successfully employed MTurk. I did, and others before me have, and I know many after me will be able to do it as well. You can see why, when you consider all these other angles and aspects, why something like SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics has to charge their higher fees, because they're actually doing a lot of work for you. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any extra questions about this video. You can reach out to me through my website at www.drwillpeer.com. I would try to help everybody I can, right? But I have a work life of things I got to do too. But I do try to pitch in, and help others out. So where I can, I'll be glad to do that as my life bandwidth and work tasks allow. You can find a lot of information about MTurk in my dissertation, and I would encourage you to check it out. You can find it in ProQuest, or you go back to my website, www.drwillpeer.com/ProQuest. If you type that in, it'll do a redirect for you over to ProQuest to pull it up. And when you get the dissertation, just do a search for MTurk, and you'll see all the different things that I saw. So with all that, thank you for watching. If you've stuck it out the whole way through, mad props to you. No doubt you're going to finish your dissertation. Good luck on your research. Little every day goes a long way. You'll get there. Keep chipping it away. And lopes out. See you at graduation. Yay! All right. I hope you found value in my video. If you did, please consider helping me out in return by liking the video, sharing it with others, subscribing to my channel, or even buying me a taco. You can buy me a taco by going to my website at www.drwillpeer.com/taco. Take care and good luck on the remainder of your academic journey. A little every day goes a long way. See you at graduation.